My background's in computers, law, and medicine. So with computers, I got started in 9th grade. I wrote a program on an old Olivetti programmable calculator to figure out how to keep score in bowling, and I graduated from there onto a terminal from the Oakland County Intermediate School District. I wrote a program calculating the day of the week that somebody was born on. And then I got a job working for a company called Wang Laboratories that made programmable mini computers. And actually one of my early clients was a clinical lab, and I wrote the software for order entry and result reporting and for archiving of lab results. And I continued. I worked for Blue Cross on their computer system and for many other companies. My other background was in law. After undergrad to Wayne State, was pre-med with a math major, and I went to medical school after that. And in medical school, I was also interested in computers and medicine. I spent a couple months at the National Institutes of Health doing a clerkship as a fourth year in computers and medicine. But there were no programs, no actually employment opportunities then. I talked to a lot of people and they said, oh yeah, I do computers and medicine, but really I'm a radiologist and I just do this on the side. But wait a couple of years and there will be a field. Well, that didn't seem to happen when I graduated med school, which was in '83. So I went to law school. My father was in politics. I thought I liked the law. And then when I graduated, there still was no field in computers and medicine. And I really wasn't sure what to do. Actually at the beginning of law school, I felt a big rock-hard mass in my abdomen. I was studying for my first term finals, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's cancer, I'm going to die. And it had spread all throughout my abdomen and pelvis, and I really thought I would die, but I lucked out. It was Hodgkin lymphoma, which back then they treated with radiation therapy, and it went away. And so every day I thought I was going to die, and then one day I didn't think about it because I was fine, And then I started to think about, well, what am I going to do? But there was nothing in medicine for me, I didn't think. So I decided to practice law. This is not really what I wanted to do. And at some point, I kind of thought, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. So surely there must be something in medicine I could do. And I started thinking about it and talking to people, and I decided I wanted to go into pathology, which I think is what happens to a lot of pathologists. They don't necessarily go into it at once. When I got out, I started working, but I thought about the website, and I thought, that's something I want to get going and see what happens with it. I think the inspiration to start it came when I was a pathology resident. This was at Wayne State in Detroit. Our chief for most of the time was the late Dr. David Grinion, and he held unknown conferences Tuesday morning, and all of the residents and fellows, we'd prepare for it by using different notes and whatever we had. And we also used a book by Dr. John Sinnard called Outlines in Pathology, which had summaries of all the different tumor entities. The only problem with his book, it was a great book, but it was quickly out of date. So we would tape little additions into the book, and he did not come up with a new version. It had no pictures, it had no references. So we kind of made our own note system. Everyone had laptops then, even though it was this was now the late 90s. And I guess I started thinking, I already had kind of some notes in a computer. It was just for me, and I think I started thinking, well, maybe I should do this for everything in pathology. I really didn't have the bandwidth to think about it till I finished my fellowship, which was in June of 2000. Then I started working as a pathologist, and then I really started thinking, yeah, maybe I should do this, kind of using outlines in pathology as the concept as a structure. And I was at a family camp in August 2001, and I thought, well, I'm just going to start. And I just started writing, and I started writing with the thyroid gland, and I had brought with me Sternberg and Rosai and all my notes from USCAP conferences and the AFIP fascicles, and I just started writing. I think the biggest challenge was just the breadth of the subject. It's overwhelming to write about all of pathology. If I thought about it, I would be discouraged, and I decided, well, I'm just going to start and keep going. I'll start with the thyroid, and I'll do that, and then I'll do something else, and I'll just keep going. And it's not complete. So that's another challenge, is that many of us are perfectionists. We want it to be everything done at once. And I decided, there's a saying, perfection is the enemy of the good. If I made it perfect, I could have kept going back and spent the past 25 years just doing the thyroid chapter. It would be, probably be pretty good, but it would never work. So that was another challenge, was to overcome my own instinct for perfectionism. Frankly, I didn't really know what I was doing. I mean, I understood pathology pretty well, but I wasn't a writer. I wasn't a textbook writer. I wasn't a publisher. I didn't know how to do those things. I used my own judgment, but I didn't really know. And it wasn't really until I started hiring people that they gave me ideas, and we came up with a structure and procedures and all the things that a business should have. The other problem is paying for it. At first, I was practicing law, and I was doing pathology, I was doing some computer work, and I was doing this. And eventually, it was just too much. And I decided I wanted to continue the website, but I had to make some money. And doing it, or else it just wouldn't continue. Actually, somebody called me up, a pathologist called me up and said, I'd like to post a job ad on your website. And I was going to tell him, oh, we don't do that, when I had enough sense to say, oh, that's great, let me get back to you. And then in the next hour or two, I scrambled and I asked everyone I know, well, what do I do? We came up with a solution. It wasn't, maybe a great solution, but it was a solution. And that really was the way that we started advertising. And of course, we improved over time.